Well, first I want to say that I think that brands need to be in both places, that there's so many buyers that are going to these marketplaces, Amazon, Walmart, etc., that they need to have a strategy to be there. That said, the marketplace is never going to care about their brand the way that the brand cares about their brand. They're never going to be able to tell their story the way that they can tell their story.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Eric Dean, the CEO and founder of Whereoware. Eric, it's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You were at the show yesterday. Wondered if you could share some of your thoughts from the B2B online conference here at Chicago.
Well, first, it's great to see it growing so quickly. Last year was the first year I came, and I think there were a couple hundred fewer people. And I guess the year before that, there were a couple hundred fewer people. So I think it really goes to show how, in the mindset of the B2B professionals that, getting these things right, marketing, e-commerce is really growing.
You've sort of talked often about the term Omni-channel personalization. Wondered if you could go into that and talk about what that means and how brands can actually deliver on that promise.
I think it's about having an authentic conversation, authentic relationship with your customers, and if you're a customer, an authentic relationship with your vendor or your partner across all the different channels. So it's whether buyers don't just want to be in a silo. They don't want to get locked into it, particularly on the B2B world. So you're looking at of somebody who wants to deal with a salesperson. They've dealt with a salesperson maybe for the last 10 years. But they're also going to do their research online. We work a lot of consumer product companies, and they're also, those guys their buyers are also attending trade shows. So it's somehow you need to find out what their relationship is with you at all these various touch points. So at a trade show, online, responding to an email, calling into your call center, and finally getting a visit in your store or in your office by a salesperson, and having a consistent experience across each one of those.
How do you think about sort of merging both the physical in-store presence with that online experience, and how do you ensure for your clients that it's perfectly seamless?
I think it's an iterative approach. Is that when somebody goes on, when a buyer goes online, they're trying to accomplish something. Maybe they're going to order, but maybe they're just looking. Maybe they're doing their research, or maybe they're finding out where their shipment is, or taking care of a logistical concern. But if they're researching, if they're heavy into looking into one product line or examining your new products, by the time that next meeting happens in the office, that salesperson needs to know that. So they're not walking in as a cold call. They're going in and it's a relevant conversation, and it's iterative to what that buyer did last week, last month, so that it is more value added. It's a better use of both people's time, and it's having the courtesy to understand what that person was doing and go in and try to solve their problem, as opposed to going with a blanket, here's my latest approach.
How do you think about drawing that audience in, that consumer in on the websites that you create for your clients?
Well, so we do a variety of both B2B and B2C websites. So on the consumer, to draw them in, it's a question of trying to make sure that you're giving them, there's so much noise out there right now, is that you have to give them something compelling that catches their attention when they're ready to talk. So it's understanding, what kind of segments you're going after, having the right material. Obviously, you've got to be great at the different tricks. You've got to be great at SEO, so that if they run a search, you're found. If it's a consumer product, you probably want to have some presence on Amazon, since so many of the searches are starting there. And then make sure that there's some way, there's branding or something that enables them to know who's making that product, so they can pop across to your own site. Of course, then you need to be able to be found. And when they come, you want to make it easy for them to find out exactly what they're looking for. So you don't want to route them on a circuitous journey through your website. You want to take them to right what they're looking for, so it's relevant. It's a very good use of their time, and they're getting right to where they need to be.
Do you think about it differently from a B2B perspective in terms of, how you attract these consumers? Do you think, first, is your default approach to inform, or is it to entertain? How do you think about that?
With B2B, it's a little different than B2C, because one, you're building probably longer lasting relationships. It might be more of an overall program-driven interaction with them, as opposed to hey, it's a simple transaction. So B2B tends to be less transactional. That said, the transactions that you do there need to be extremely concise, very easy, and very repeatable. These are long-term relationships, so you want to make it as easy as possible for those B2B buyers to do business with your company.
So you had a panel yesterday, Beyond the Shopping Cart. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how brands, can protect their market share and have more e-commerce done on their sites versus, losing market share potentially to Amazon.
Okay. Well, first I want to say that I think that brands need to be in both places, that there's so many buyers that are going to these marketplaces, Amazon, Walmart, etc., that they need to have a strategy to be there. That said, the marketplace is never going to care about their brand the way that the brand cares about their brand. They're never going to be able to tell their story the way that they can tell their story. So I think it's a full approach that they should take, is that when they sell something on Amazon, the packaging, what they deliver, this should be heavily branded. They should make it extremely easy for them to know who they're buying the goods from, and make sure that their entire digital setup is correct, so that it's easy for them to Google them, to find their company website. Likewise, Amazon advertising might be a good place to put, some of those search dollars that are out there. Put them on Amazon, but put them in such a way so that it's definitely supporting the brand, so that people can find the brand when they make a purchase. If it's not a commodity, people are interested in it. They want to know who they're buying from. They want to know the company's going to stand behind them. Amazon does a great job with their Prime service of handling that. But for if it's a replenishing relationship, or if it's a bigger purchase, they're going to want to know something about the brand. So make it really easy for them to find. Whether you're advertising on Amazon or you're shipping something through Amazon, make it really easy for them to find you online, on your own site.
So you counsel brands all the time on creating these beautiful frictionless purchasing decisions. How do you think about that from a B2B perspective?
Well, from B2B, it's, they're going to interact with your brand in all these multiple places, and you need to make sure that it's a good, consistent experience with it. So you need to make sure that everything from how the brand's presented, that your creative's on track and is consistent, whether it's your salespeople presenting, a custom catalog to them, or it's their interaction with you at a trade show booth, or it's the messaging they get when they hit your call center. So it needs to be, the customer needs to have a single view of your brand, regardless of where they touch it, and it needs to be one that makes them want to do business with you.
Mm-hmm. And how about in the B2C context? How would you draw the distinctions there?
There's some similarities, because you always want to zero in on exactly what the person is and sort of what their function is. On B2C, I think it's the personas that you work with, is that you want to make sure that you're giving the right message and the right experience, depending on who it is. So depending on who's buying your product. So, if it's a soccer mom, you want to, give the soccer mom and understand sort of, what that persona, what that user group experience should be, and work backwards from that perfect experience, and make sure that you're delivering that at all the different touch points. On B2B, whether it's, purchasing manager or the marketing manager, whoever's buying your product, you need to make sure that you're hitting what's important to them. So, if you have content for the finance chief, you need to make sure that he or she gets that when they log in, and if it's the marketing person, the decision maker gets it, versus the person who's actually going to be doing the job on a day-to-day basis. You need to make sure that then they get the proper experience. So it's a question of zeroing in on that persona and making sure that you're delivering what are the specific needs that they need.
How do you think about personalization in websites and sort of mapping that to distinct personas?
Well, I think the website, and with the technology that's available and the techniques that are available, you can look at it not as a one-size-fits-all, but it's almost a unique experience. We're looking for, we talk about visitor groups, running down experiences that are great for each visitor group. We want to get to a visitor group of one, so that every interaction digitally is as unique as what it is face-to-face, as unique as our conversation today. As simple as on the B2B side, discovery is still hugely important. You need to acquire new customers, and they're going to do their homework online. It's what everybody does. So when the first time someone visits your website, you need to hit them with that message of why they should invest first the next 30 seconds to learn more about your company, and then hopefully another 5 or 10 minutes, and then hopefully something that creates a conversion, creates a lead for you. But if it's somebody who comes to your website every week and is placing a reorder, for God's sake, please don't tell them the basics about your company. Give them the opportunity, get in, get out, do their job as quickly as possible, create it as frictionless as possible, make it so easy to do business with you. That's what's going to keep them coming back. So your website needs to do both. It needs to go out and acquire new customers, but also needs to take extreme care of your loyal customers.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we're going to have a little bit of a setback, based on all the concerns over privacy and various regulations that have come down, and we're sort of in the European Union we have GDPR and the compliance around that. How are you counseling your clients?
Well, we're we dealt with the Canadian Castle laws a couple years ago with email, and certainly GDPR is on everybody's mind these days. Nobody fully understands exactly what all the impacts are, but we know that it has an impact on personalization and on privacy. We're watching it very closely. My feel is that in this country is that it's not going to go. The pendulum's not going to swing too far. There's too much invested in getting it. That said, and we've seen plenty of examples where it can't go completely unchecked as well. So our advice is to go after that opt-in audience. They're so much more valuable anyway. Start taking pains now, or taking steps now to go ahead and get that opt-in, get the permissions, show them that you can give them relevant and compelling content in return for them telling you who they are. And that's sort of the business proposition, or the deal that you work with your customers. And as long as you stay true to that and you don't abuse it, and you do give them something in return that's a relevant, compelling content, and it's a compelling experience, that it's going to be worth their time, worth their trade.
Do you think now, given the relative commoditization of all of these amazing technologies, that brands are increasingly competing based on user experience rather than based on some killer functionality or technology?
Absolutely, and I think it's the full experience. It's how they first interact with their brand, what experience they have when they actually use the product or service. How their ongoing interaction with the brands come in. So experience is a differentiator, because a lot of the other, the moats that were built and bulwarks that were built over decades are coming down. It's just too easy to go find a competitive product. So you need to do something that starts a relationship, and then with a customer, whoever that is, and then once that relationship's there, you need to foster it and nurture it at all costs.
How are you beginning to think about sort of these newer ways of interacting with brands, with websites, whether that's voice? How do you create a voice brand? Gestures, more innovative ways of engaging online.
It's something that we're starting to think about. I don't know if anybody really knows what direction it's going to go, but their interface is getting so much easy. I mean, you've seen that with wearables, or the assistants that are sitting, Alexa, Siri, didn't exist a few years ago, and now it is your interface. So really, I think the experience, the visual experience that we give, is still what we're focused on, and that overall omni-channel experience. We're looking at the audio as more of an interface, as just as a way to get into the system.
That was Eric Dean, the CEO and founder of Whereoware. Thank you.
Thank you.